Welcome to this week's Moving Through Menopause chat. And I'm joined this morning by Anne Gilkes. Anne is a chartered engineer and she's working 4 days a week and Thursday's a day off. So thanks so much, Anne, for joining me on your day off.
Oh, pleasure, Philippa. Really pleased to be here. And yeah, thanks for inviting me for the chat. It's a good day to do it, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, it's also Anxiety Awareness Month, April, and so anxiety is something that is a feature of menopause for lots of women, and I know that I had my own experience of that. Unexplained, out of nowhere, can't make head nor tail of it. Why is this happening? And so I know that there are occasions when people struggle with those kinds of symptoms and use a variety of strategies to cope. So this morning we are talking about alcohol, and people may use alcohol as a strategy to deal with all sorts of today's modern challenges. And I think I said to you when we chatted before that I've been pretty much a non-drinker for the last quite a long time, and to be honest, menopause did have a part to play in that, because I just found that it made me have trouble with sleep, palpitations, one thing and another, and I just would not sleep at all if I'd had even just one glass of wine, which was,
Oh God, yeah.
no. So I kind of gave it up probably about 3 or 4 years ago now. And to be honest, I've had a bit of a up and down journey with alcohol. When I was younger, I lost a brother in an accident, and so I found that if I was getting drinking at all, that it just made me cry. And
I'm not surprised with that, yeah, especially at that age.
Yeah. So, and I had a car from being sort of 18, and I used to drive, and so I was never drinking and driving. I was very popular because all my friends, they'd be drinking and I'd be driving, and it suited me fine, to be honest. So, but this is something that lots of different people have different stories to tell, and I know that you have a story with alcohol, and so. Thank you so much for coming to share this story with us today. Hoping that we can help people.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I always think about is that people don't really talk about alcohol as much as we should do, because it's actually a massive problem. Not just in this country, but all over the world. And what I like to do is I do talk about it, because it's like we should be able to talk about it in the same way that we talk about mental health. That used to be quite a stigma to talk about. So this is why I'm, really happy to tell my story. It isn't, it's not a rock bottom story. It's very, I would say, ordinary, but I think a lot of people might find it extraordinary, because I was the opposite to you. I was drinking when I was 15. It started 15 and it got more and more as I sort of went through into university, and my teenage, became into 20s and 30s. And rather than stopping, I got more and more into it. And that the only times I ever had a break were when I had my 2 boys, when I was pregnant with them. So it's one of those things that as I got older, I started to realize that I was looking around myself, with all my friends, that they weren't drinking as fast as I was, and I was constantly watching, the alcohol consumption on the table when we were out. It's like, God, they're so slow, I was thinking to myself, and it was the same at home. I was coming in from work thinking it was normal to have a glass of wine, which a lot of people do. But I was then starting to just drink faster and faster through the night. My husband would stop at 1 or 2 and I'd just drink the bottle or the next bottle. And he was noticing. And so because he was noticing, I was like, okay, well, I'll just have some before he comes home, and then I'll hide the evidence, because then he won't notice. So that's kind of when I stood back, and I've always really valued honesty and freedom in what I do. And I was suddenly thinking, you know what? I'm not being honest to me, and I'm not being honest to my husband, to my friends. And this is wrong. There's something really going on here, which isn't right.
Mm.
And that's when I thought, I've got to do something about it.
So what age was that, by the way?
So that was in my 40s, sort of late 40s, I was thinking about it. And at that stage, I started to become more interested in what I could do to stop. But I had this huge denial going on as well. So it took me a good maybe 4 or 5 years of realizing that I had something wrong to actually do something about it. And I know in my intro, you mentioned that I'd been to the GP, and I said to the GP, as we always do, you lie about how much you drink. So he said, oh yeah, I just have half a bottle a night. And she's like, that's fine. I was like, what? So obviously it was fine because the doctor said so. I was like, great, I can just go and drink more, which was ridiculous, especially these days, if somebody's asking for help, you've got to think, well, they're probably not telling the truth. What's the real stuff going on behind there? So that's kind of my story.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? That but you told her a lie, and then when she said it was okay, you thought you'd go along with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, that was in my head, and this is what happens when you drink a lot, it's so much in your head and it's so much in your subconscious. You'll do anything to satisfy that. Yeah, it's okay to drink. Because what happens is that your subconscious wants to look after you. At the end of the day, it's there to keep you safe. And it likes to keep you safe by not putting you into a situation that's uncomfortable.
Right.
So it thinks, oh, hang on a minute. You're thinking about not drinking. God, you're getting really anxious about that. You're really nervous. So we know, says the subconscious, that it's okay because if you have a drink, you'll feel fine. But what the subconscious doesn't realize, it doesn't look long term. It only ever looks short term. So it doesn't think that in the morning you're going to have a hangover. You're going to have anxiety. It doesn't think long term. Yeah, anxiety is a term.
Oh, I didn't know.
It doesn't think long term. Yeah, it just thinks, okay, short term. Yeah, this is what Anne needs. Anne needs a drink. So yeah, it's fine. Just go and do it. And then you'll feel better, which of course is completely wrong. But that's the way your subconscious works. It just kicks in on that, what's the most immediate thing to keep you safe, to keep you comfortable.
Yeah. So, what are the negative effects that I think lots of us know them, but it seems like we might just need to be reminded.
I'm not sure you want me to. The obvious one is the dehydration that you get. So, it's a diuretic. So that's why you feel so hungover quite often in the next morning, because you're really dehydrated. I think the main thing with alcohol, it's a depressant, and it's also an anesthetic. Anesthetic? I can't say that.
Yeah, no, that's right.
It anesthetizes you. So this is why people refer to it as numbing out, because you're effectively just numbing out. You're reducing, your capacity to feel emotions. And whilst because it's a depressant, what it does, and this is only something I learned fairly recently, actually, is that when you're young, you can cope with it more than when you're older, sort of as you get into your 40s, 50s. So if you think about alcohol as, everybody knows about dopamine. So you get a dopamine hit. And this sends all of your, it's one of these endorphins that's a sort of pleasure, feel-good drug, what people refer to as the feel-good drug. It's also memory-related. People don't realise. Yeah. So originally, the cavemen were going off finding the best hunting grounds and the best honey, all that kind of stuff. And they get a big hit of dopamine because they want to remember where this was.
Oh,
so with alcohol, you get this massive dopamine hit. And then, of course, your body goes, hang on, okay, I've got this big hit, but I like to be at baseline. So it releases the opposite. It releases dynorphins to bring you back down to baseline. Okay. So this is why when you first start drinking, you get that buzz. You get your big hit of dopamine kicking in, your endorphins come in, you feel great. And then you get baseline brings it back down with the dynorphin, so that as you drink, you're constantly being brought down to baseline. So you want to drink more to get more of the buzz, brings you back down again, etc. That's where you get a cycle.
Yeah.
What happens is, as you get older, it becomes more about the anticipation. So your body starts to anticipate the dopamine hit. And as it anticipates it, it gets the endorphin rush.
Yeah.
So already, before you've even had your drink, your dynorphins kick in and bring you back down to a base level. And actually what's happening is you are sinking and your baseline is getting lower and lower and lower, so that you start to need the artificial hit of alcohol or some other kind of artificial hit to get you up to baseline before you even start.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why people then start to get the cravings, that they need the drinks. And that's the real negative effect of alcohol. It's that getting in that cycle, you need the alcohol to get you to enjoy stuff. Because if you don't have a break, you find that in your 40s and 50s, you can't get enjoyment out of normal everyday things like, having a hug, seeing friends, nice food. These are things that would give you a natural high, but you're so used to the artificial high, you don't get as much pleasure. So this is like the long-term effect of drinking.
Wow.
So, everybody knows about, alcohol's a carcinogen, it affects your liver, your heart, and all of the big health effects.
Yeah.
But it's this compound effect that's really quite a worrying thing that, people need to be aware of, I think.
Well, and I think that's when you start to do things to feel normal, is that, so that your baseline is down. And so we're trying always to do things to be normal. And I mean, you see all these ads on the television, and this, actually, you mentioned about the anticipation. And there's no doubt that those people who are making those ads have got that down to a T.
Oh God! I tell you, I get really cross with the advertising industry. It saw a massive market a couple of decades ago that women weren't being targeted. Alcohol was all about men and beer. And they've really turned that round. Now you've got a whole aisle full of pink, fluffy, sparkly drinks. And then you've got all the alcohol pops for the teenagers.
Oh, don't even.
And I just get really cross with it. It's just, when I was young, a little while ago, birthdays weren't about Prosecco. Now you can't, ever talk about a birthday without, you have to have Prosecco, because it's the thing you have with a celebration these days. And that's all come from the advertising industry when you think about it.
I think it's difficult, isn't it, to talk about this topic without upsetting people, who, because as part of a celebration, an occasional, I kind of liken it, I suppose, to what I would call occasional foods, things that we shouldn't really eat every day, but if we have them every once in a while, it's not going to, be the end of the world. And I kind of put alcohol in that category, I suppose, for the most part.
Which is great, and that, I haven't got anything against people celebrating, with glasses and all that kind of stuff.
No.
And I haven't got anything against going to the pubs. I'm going to the pub tonight, with my husband and some friends, but it's about being aware of where you are in your relationship with alcohol. And not everybody can, because I know if I went down the pub and started drinking, and it's been 3.5 years since I was drinking, I get faster and faster. I wouldn't just stop at one, because I go, oh, it feels nice, I'm just going to have some more. And then everybody else would be slowing down, and I get faster and faster and faster. So it's about knowing your own tendencies and where you are with it, I think.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, we've got a comment from Kate who says that you deserve a drink advertising campaign is really clever. I'm not sure which brand that refers to. Not that I'm advertising, so I probably won't mention it. But yeah, it's like there's another one, but I think, is it a hair care product? You deserve.
Yeah, that's the one I always think of. Yeah, L'Oreal. Is it L'Oreal? We'll have to say L'Oreal on this. Yeah,
whatever it is, I really don't know, to be honest. But I mean, you deserve to have a drink. It's starting to get a little bit pushing it a bit far, isn't it? So yeah, and I've got 2 teenage boys, and I know you've got
I've got 2 teenage boys as well.
Oh, there you go. So and I do. When I was the same age, obviously, years ago, where there was not all the they put 2 things together that are highly addictive. One is alcohol, and the other is sugar. And so now, I mean, like you mentioned, the alcohol pops, sugar and colouring, and it's all the appealing packaging and the way it's parcelled up. Oh gosh, I mean, you have to be superhuman to resist that. And of course, it's not going to be a problem for everybody, but I know it's in my. Well, I say this. I have 2 family members who have had struggles with alcohol, and so I say it's in my family. I think there is a genetic propensity for these struggles. And even, even if not, then the way that they're selling it to us, honestly, you've got to be superhuman to resist.
Yeah, that's right. And it's like I say, it's just having an awareness. And this is why, I mean, I talk openly to my boys about my history. And it was very common for me to drink, but nobody said I had a problem, because with a lot of people, it's so easy to hide it, because, I've got a job, go to work, absolutely fine, functioning, busy, the family. And it's easy to mislead people. People will say, you didn't have problems. It's like, well, yeah, I did. I just hid it very well,
So in the end, you decided the time, you said for quite a while you deliberated about stopping, but one day you took the decision. Did you need help with that, or?
Yeah, I did. I did a group coaching program where it was a 6-week program, and 6 weeks is actually a great time to really do as an intensive course, because you really get focused into it. And it was all about, for me, it was all about learning the knowledge that I wasn't the only one, and actually that because it's such a toxic, addictive substance, you're not blaming yourself. You can't blame yourself if you end up in this trap, because it's so pushed in society, and it's so ingrained in society that we can't go out without drinking. That people like me who couldn't cope with it, it's okay basically to know that you are okay with it, that you're okay with having a problem, because going around circles here, but you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And so at the end of that program, you were able to have you fallen foul of the drink again, or have you managed to remain? Are you a non-drinker now, would you say? Or?
Yeah, completely non-drinker now. I mean, 3.5 years since then. After that 6 weeks, and I hadn't ever intended to stop. I just thought, okay, I'm going to take a 6-week break. But my eyes were open so much, and the big thing that's really kept me going is my sleep, because sleep is absolutely amazing. And I talk about this on my blogs, but the whole sleep thing has just changed completely, from waking up every night in the middle of the night, and of course that gets worse with menopause as well, to just sleeping like a kid, when you used to go to sleep and the next minute it was morning and the sun was shining. It's like, okay, this happens again. Wow. So this is one of the big things that's kept me going. And I have, if I'm honest, I did try drinking a couple of times in that last 3.5 years, but to just even one glass, I was like, I really don't like this. What am I doing? And I was doing it because I was like, fear of missing out. I put myself in that situation where I was down the pub, it was New Year's Eve, and it's like, oh my God, look at everybody else. And that was a good two or more years ago now. I was just like, I wouldn't do that ever again, because actually, I don't need to have the alcohol. Because if you really think about why you're there, it's for the connection.
Yeah.
And that's what I focused on. And there's so many more things these days that, that you can actually enjoy down the pubs. There's so many alcohol-free alternatives. It's amazing how many sprung up in the last 2 years.
Yeah, well, that is a good thing, of course, from that industry perspective, that they are catering to people who, offering options, drivers. I suppose that was the thing. People used to drink and drive a lot more than
yeah.
So it's really good to have that as an option if you're a driver, say, for instance. And I said this to my son, who is he's now 20, but we never drink in the house. He'd never let him try it, taste it, test it, because it wasn't something that we were doing. And so when we went out, of course, he wasn't there because he was young. So anyway, so he had hardly drunk, and he was going to his prom at the at the end of sixth form. And I said to him, look, just get something that looks like it. If you're feeling pressure, and that's a pity, isn't it? Because there is peer pressure.
And actually, I've just done a blog this week all about that, because with the pubs opening up again, I've seen a lot on social media recently from like some of the sober blog type things that I'm groups that I'm part of. And there's a lot of worried people about wanting to go back out and get there with their friends, but not sure how to go about it. So I just put a few tips up on my last blog.
Oh, good. Well, do you know what? I'm the sort of person who nowadays I go to a pub, and quite often it's a kind of pub where there'll be food. I think that might even be a rule now. Anyway, so I'll have herbal tea. I'm not even bothered. But I think you worry about it more than other people would, to be honest, because nobody's out there thinking, oh, look at them, what are they doing having lemonade? I mean, it's more in your own head, probably, isn't it? Do you think?
It is. People just don't notice. And when I go to a party, I will always take a bag of stash with me of my own alcohol. I do. I have my own bag of alcohol-free beers, or you can get really nice alcohol-free ciders these days. And I'm there, I've got a bottle in my hand, and nobody has any idea, and they don't care anyway.
No,
they really don't care. But I am naughty. I do take the odd one to the pub as well, in case there isn't something I fancy. So especially drinking outside, I shouldn't really encourage it. But I'm there to have a good time as well.
And absolutely, I have quite a few nutritional intolerances. And so my opinion is, if they're not catering for me, then I'm perfectly within my rights to take my sandwiches, and I'll eat. If there isn't any kind of option that I can have, if they're not catering for you, then have it in your handbag. And if you get challenged, then obviously I say, well, if you had it on the menu, I would have ordered it, but you haven't, or if it was there behind the bar. So definitely have a plan. That's always a big part, isn't it, of making any kind of change in your behaviour, is have a plan, and
it is.
Have a backup, so that the bottling,
have an exit plan.
An exit plan, okay, So have you the benefits? We've talked a little bit about your sleep, obviously. But, do people say things to you like, oh, Anne, you're looking so well, or I don't know.
Yeah, they do. It's like, I have rosacea, which used to flare up massively when I was drinking. And normally, unless like the other day I went out and had too much sun on it, it's fine. It's brilliant. So, people talk about your skin and your hair, and it does actually make a difference. And of course, when you think about all the calories you're not consuming as well, that can make a difference. But it's just the amount of energy that you end up with, because you are, and I think it's also energy in your head. So for me, a big thing that I was struggling with was constantly thinking and fighting in my own head whether I was going to drink that night.
Right.
So it's like, no, I'm not going to drink. No, I'm not going to drink. Get in. Not going to drink. Oh, okay, I'll have one. And it was constantly like that. You got this voice in your head. People call it the wine witch.
Wine what?
The wine witch.
Oh, okay. Wine witch a woman is what I want to know.
Yeah.
Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, so for me, it's really having that calm and quiet and being able to really get my thoughts back together, get myself back in control of who I am and what I want to do, and instead of, you mentioned driving, so I would never go anywhere. I'd have to drive and not be able to drink
Oh.
because I'd find an excuse. It's like, no, I want to be able to get my fix, I'm not going to drive. So that's opened up a whole new world. So, or it will do after COVID again, hopefully. We can drive off to the city, because I'm on the coast here.
Right.
We can go to see gigs, and go to see friends, and go to nice meals out in places that aren't just on our doorstep, that we'd walk to or get a taxi back from.
Yeah.
So there's so many things, but it's the energy, the sleep, just that freedom, the real freedom, and actually, getting back to being who I am, really being authentically me, I suppose, as opposed to somebody hiding, what I was like.
Yeah. I mean, you do exude energy, I must say, Anne. It's what's the word? I'm laughing because I'm thinking of the virus, contagious. Oh dear. Anyway,
I think that is a word, contagious energy. I don't know, hopefully.
So Kate's back again. Kate, hello, Kate. A dear friend, Kate. Hello. And so she's not wrong, actually, but the alcohol-free alternatives will be full of sugar. They've got to have something in them to make them appealing. And
well, there's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot that actually have a lot less calories.
Oh, so okay. Well, that's good to know. Have you got a list?
Yeah. So if you look at there's a whole range of drinks around kombucha.
Oh yeah.
And Switchel, which is another version of kombucha, which I found them in the health food shop. Holland and Barrett.
Yeah.
And they're flavored, and they can be, some of them could be a little bit vinegary, but when you find a nice one, they're really nice, and they have hardly any calories in them, and they're so good for you anyway because they're full of culture. They're brilliant. But even low alcohol beers and lagers have a lot less calories in. Yeah, just have a look on the bottles and you'll see.
Yeah, I think Coca Cola she mentioned, which obviously other brown drinks are available. Yeah. So, I mean, the thing is with sugar has its own negative consequences, and driving inflammation in the body is one of them. So, we don't want to jump out of the frying pan into the fire. And the kombucha is a really good suggestion because it is essentially feeding the gut bacteria, which may indeed have been in a depleted state if we're struggling with anything to excess. And so then you are, it's a win-win. We're feeding the live bacteria and reduce sugar. Basically, because it's alive, it's consuming the sugar that's in it, isn't it? And so, it ends up being and some of them are interesting. You might have to go through a few till you find one that you particularly enjoy. But this is part of the journey, isn't it? Experimenting with things that you might like. I having given up dairy for various reasons, I've been experimenting with different herbal teas, and there's a whole world of herbal tea out there that.
I love my herbal tea. I've had chamomile tea every night without fail at 9 o'clock since I gave up.
Have you?
And it's kind of like setting an anchor, which is something that brings an association with a particular state, scent or smell, something you see or hear. And for me, I've got an anchor that just helps me know, that's my time for sleep,
I mean, that's it, isn't it? Because it's coffee break, have a cigarette. It's the associations that we're fighting as much as the chemical addiction. So routine, we are creatures of habit and routine. We respond to routine, and it's the same with movement. For me, like I said to you, I'm just fresh, maybe not so fresh from teaching a class. And so to do the same thing at the same time every day is a really good way of, as you say, anchoring a behavior. And so to adopt good behaviors in place of less than desirable habits. Have a time when you do have your, it's chamomile o'clock. Maybe we could coin that phrase, chamomile o'clock.
I think I might, hashtag that one.
Yeah, okay. Well, you can, as long as you mention my name, that'll be fine.
Okay.
So, do the same thing at the same time every day, and you're going to embed habits. And if it's a good thing like movement or good sources of nutrition or, fluids, because like you mentioned, dehydration is definitely a feature of menopause. It's, I'm feeling dry at the thought of it. Look, here we go. I've got a glass of water there. And so, to have the bottle with the marks on, that we know that we're getting through enough.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Lots of those drinks bottles are now marketed with volume measures so that you can I've had enough of the water. And
I always add a wedge of lime into virtually everything I drink.
Do you? Well, it's going to look the part, isn't it?
Yeah, I love lime. Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about the negative effects on the body, and one of the effects that people may not be so familiar with is the fact that alcohol does interfere with calcium in the body, and can lead to osteoporosis if we've got excessive consumption. And so obviously menopause is a time when we are losing that natural estrogen in our bodies, and the bone behavior changes. At a cellular level, the behavior of the bone changes so that the cells that are being lost are not being replaced in the same at the same rate. And so we end up in a net deficit situation, which is that we are losing more cells than we are building, and this is what ultimately results in this net loss, which sometimes gets to the point of being so detrimental that we are developing osteopenia and osteoporosis. And the thing with both of those things is you wouldn't necessarily know it was happening. And alcohol definitely contributes to that process. So, there's always an upside with all of these things, which is that there can be, lots of different things that we can do nutritionally and also with movement in order to shift that balance. Kate's back again. I'm smiling because she's got another, she said, she experimented with less alcohol and realized how many more useful hours there were in an evening. How to fill them? Well, do you know what, Kate knows what I'm going to say now. How to fill them? Oh, well, my
exercise classes.
There you go. My online evening Pilates classes. Come on down. She's quite right. When you've got a large portion of your evening that suddenly has been liberated for whatever reason, then sitting and watching more television isn't necessarily the thing that we usefully might spend that time doing. So I read about becoming an active relaxer. The whole idea.
That sounds good.
I know. So the idea that relaxation isn't just a passive thing, that it's something that we can actively pursue, movement-based ways of relaxing. And so, the sessions that I teach, as you can see, I came fresh from a class and I didn't need to go and have a shower. I didn't need to do my hair. I would have maybe liked to have got changed, but anyway, so that we can do movement without breaking into a sweat, and we can make it something that is relaxing, particularly with yoga, relaxation, breath work, all sorts of different things. Cooking, we were making biscuits last night in our house and going out for a stroll. So you must feel you've got more time to do things now, Anne.
Yeah, and yoga actually was a really big one for me. So I did take up yoga when I was thinking about stopping drinking, and it's been that again is another anchor for me. So my yoga, my exercise classes, I do rowing as well. I go rowing on the river and the sea.
Oh,
And
I was going to say, not on the machine, no.
No, God, no. And that's been just amazing. But, there's other things like when you're drinking, perhaps you're not really noticing what your kids are doing in the evening. So you're aware, you get more time to spend with your kids and actually be present for it. That's a big thing that I think I missed out with when I was drinking when my kids were younger, because I just want to get them into bed,
Well,
So
don't feel too bad, because I wanted to get mine into bed as well.
Yeah, I think we all do sometimes.
Yeah, it wasn't so I could drink, but I did want to get them in bed.
Yeah. But I did your meditation class a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I have to say that was really nice, and I really enjoyed that. And those are the absolutely perfect things, when people are just starting to get into a routine of doing other things apart from drinking and wondering what else they can do.
Yeah.
And like you say, these days we can do them at home. So it's not like you have to drive half an hour to go to your exercise class, and they can really fit in.
Yeah.
And you really opened my eyes actually about the alcohol and, the calcium leaching, because I'd completely forgotten about that, until you mentioned it. So yeah, it's important to do the bone strengthening stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether you do or whether you don't have a history of alcohol, even spinach can leach the alcohol. So, you've got to wilt your spinach. Did you know that, Anne?
I didn't know that. No.
Yeah. So there's something in particular foods called oxalate. And we need to break that down, because that's another thing. I suppose you'd need, like all these things, you might need to eat bucketfuls of spinach for it to be the thing that, makes a difference. But I am somebody who eats bucketfuls of
yeah, we do as well. And I know you're supposed to have vitamin C with it as well, aren't you, to help the absorption?
The absorption of the iron, that is, yeah. But so the oxalates, look that up. It's definitely in spinach, and so wilt it. But when you cook it or lightly wilt it, in a frying, I put it in a frying pan, lightly wilt it, and we're good to go with the spinach. Anyway, so that's it. It's so convenient. This COVID's been horrible and dreadful, but lots of things have emerged out of this situation that are opening doors for us to do things in the comfort of our own home with convenience. We're busy working people, you're working and trying to fit in, helping people, and all at the same time. So finding time for yourself can be a bit of a challenge, and to do it from the comfort of your own home is undoubtedly, for some people, it's a real bonus to be able to do that. And so, you mentioned that you joined a coaching group, and I know that you now are coaching people to, on this journey, because I think that's so important that people know, they're not on their own. Very few of us are totally unique,
No,
yeah, and we might like to think so. So that there is support available, and always, if you're in any doubt, reach out, because and
there's so many places that you can reach out to. It's not a one size fits all. So some people might want to talk to Drinkline, for example. That's a free service where you can ring them up. I always say look on the website alcoholchange.org, because they've got a lot of resources on there. Talking to your GP, of course, is really the first port of call. Hopefully they'll be better than my GP was, who I did change. And NHS have got treatment centres, your local authority as well. There are the well-known programs like Alcoholics, can't say Alcoholics Anonymous. But a lot of people don't want to go into that kind of program, and I have to admit, I would never have gone to that kind of program.
Very
which is
interesting.
why I've trained up now to be addictive behaviors coach. So
Oh,
that, you know, if people want one-on-one, that's what I can offer them.
right.
So yeah, so I do, you know, an intensive 6-week coaching program, but I also build in NLP, which
Oh,
is
yeah, yeah.
neuro-linguistic programming, because that
Mm.
really helps to embed, you know, your mindset and change your mindset. And it's all about using the languages as well. And I've got some exercises that really help around beliefs, that kind of thing. So yeah, I kind of help my clients in a number of different ways, depending on what they want, because everybody's different.
Yeah, well, that's right. Not there isn't one thing that suits everybody, and it is sometimes finding a fit with an individual that you come upon,
Yeah,
you know, and maybe a blended approach as well. Sometimes that you approach some free materials and then reach out to a person or a group, an organisation. Um, but and don't forget that doctors are not immune either to this situation. It's well documented among the medical profession that
yeah.
and smoking behaviours are, we're not immune to those things. And so finding the person that works for you, and the approach that works for you, and know that we're only human, and we're going to fail on occasion, and
But it's all a learning process, you know. If
that's it.
you fail, it just treat it as a learning. Okay, so what did I learn from that?
Yeah,
You know, what can I do differently? You know, differently next time.
yeah, and prepare for failure, because have your handbag handy, you with your backup plan. Well, have that, know that there's every chance that things may go awry at some point.
Mm.
Have a plan
Yeah,
in place for when that happens. Somebody to ring, or you know,
yeah, planning. You know, and one of the things I give my clients, you know, when they first start, is tracker. You know, to to actually use as a diary,
mm,
so you can work out, you know, what you're feeling at the time that you might get cravings, and what drives you to perhaps do certain things, and then you can work out what to do instead.
And I suppose that's the thing. We're talking about alcohol today, but there are lots of behaviours that are addictive behaviours.
Mm,
Shopping, anything that you do to the detriment of your health and well-being is potentially an addiction. And so it could be shopping, it could be gambling, it could be alcohol.
yeah,
And
I've got a client at the moment who I'm coaching on phone use, which
oh,
is, yeah, quite a common one.
yeah, that's the thing with
Yeah,
these phones. It's all designed to appeal to us so much that we can't live without it, and then anything
yeah.
like it tips over into something that becomes counterproductive. So,
Mm.
but help's available. Don't be alone with these things. Reach out, and thank you so much today, Anne, for spending your time, for sharing this story of just a normal human being who's on a journey like we all are.
Yeah, I think the key word is normal, because that's effectively what I am, I hope. Um,
No, you
you
are.
know,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
No, it's
absolutely.
been great. You know, thanks, Philippa. We really enjoyed this. Yeah, you do some great work through the menopause podcasts that you do. Yeah, they're great.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much. It's great to see you, and we'll keep in touch. Take care now.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye now.